All right, VIP members, welcome back to Wrestler Weekly Presents episode 12, 1985. This is the bonus episode. And Mike, are you still there?
I am still here, man.
Great. This is going out to our VIP members. So this is Mike Leotis from New Jersey. How's New Jersey, my friend?
The Garden State. We're doing okay. It is chilly here today, but nothing like talking about some hot mags and some hot action here, wrestling action that is,
absolutely,
to fire up the cold temperatures.
No doubt about it. And, actually a little cool down here in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina as well, but we're getting fired up. We're getting Tommy Wildfire Rich fired up here. And we're going to talk about, we kind of briefly touched on it in the episode, but here for the bonus episode, one of the things that I am very intrigued about and have been since I was a young kid is belt for belt. Those matches, to me, are just so historic that I've actually began research on a book project to discuss it. And obviously going to start with the big one, 1978 January Super Bowl of Wrestling, Harley Race NWA champ versus superstar Billy Graham. But if you follow the lineage from there, you're going to come across a 1985 match. And Jim Valley actually talked about this on his podcast with Fumi, and just Rick Martel, the AWA World Champion, against Nature Boy Ric Flair, the NWA World Champion. And Mike, before we get into it, I'm going to open up this PWI because I think there's some interesting info for our VIP members. And a lot of this, as you know, was kayfabed and by the writers. But, when I read magazines, old mags, I read them as if the wrestler had the quote. I still kayfabe it because I still want to believe that. But, when you look at this and you talk about Flair, he has a little thing in here where he says, "Hey, I've got 3 NWA world title reigns to my credit," Flair continued. "That's nothing to sneer at. Sure, Dusty Rhodes is a 2-time champion, but how long has he held the title? About 3 months. Harley Race is long past his prime. Kerry Von Erich was a flash in the pan, so was Tommy Rich. And look at the big guns in NWA today. First of all, you have U.S. champion Magnum TA," and he kind of goes through Nikita Koloff. But down here near the bottom of this article, he talks about, "As for Rick Martel, I respect him and his scientific wrestling knowledge, but the kid's a whole milk and white bread bore. Frankly, he hasn't got the experience or the drive or the attitude that makes a real champion. I'd like to wrestle Martel, and I was hoping that the Pro Wrestling USA group would put the match together, but I don't think it's going to happen. So logically, it stands to reason that I am the single most formidable man in the sport today. I am the man that everyone would like to beat." Now, he talks about wanting to wrestle Martel, but we all know he did get to wrestle Martel in Japan. So, Mike, what do you know about that match?
Well, that match was incredible for a couple of reasons because, again, as we talked about in the episode, those matches were treated as sport, and you could feel they had the big fight feel. Martel, who was actually doing a nice job as AWA champion, his reign is kind of overlooked a lot of times because that's the era of Hulkamania and rock and wrestling. So, when the AWA was, on at that point beginning their decline, but they still had some hot acts. Had Martel, had the Road Warriors, the Freebirds were there at the time, Jimmy Garvin. But Flair and Martel meet Japan, and it's your I don't want to say your basic Flair match because trust me, the basic Flair match is an incredible match. You stick with what works, but Martel shows that little bit of fire that he was known for. If you've ever watched a Rick Martel match and he makes that comeback, man, there is fire, there is passion, and he showed that later on as a heel. With his WWE run. Right. But man, Martel was great, fiery, and this match builds like a beautiful story, similar to the Choshu match we referenced in the last, the actual regular episode. There's chain wrestling, there's good grappling, and then you see then it starts to get a little willy-nilly, you know, and they start trading shots, and then before you know it, they both end up out on the floor. But just an incredible match, two great champions, and again, you know, we know what Ric Flair is, and this is a great opportunity. If you haven't watched Rick Martel, you're really missing out, because Martel just has such great knowledge and understanding of psychology, and just an incredible underrated wrestler. So you don't want to miss this one. It's an incredible match, and I believe available on YouTube. So
absolutely. And you know what's a couple interesting facts about that match is my good buddy Chris Kovakis from Toronto, who was the belt maker on my United States title, the red leather, alligator leather belt. His favorite wrestler is Rick Martel, and he actually owns the black, if you remember, the black jacket that Martel wore in the ring in Japan.
Wow.
My buddy Chris actually owns that jacket. And so,
that's incredible.
Yeah, and so I'm putting the finishing touches on an article that is Rick Martel and Tommy Wildfire Rich. Remember, they were tag champions in Georgia.
Yes, they were.
And so I'm working on an article for 720wrestling.com and my good buddy Marvelous Mike. And so it's going to be to win a date, from win a date to winning the world title. And so if you want to know what winning a date means, you'll have to read the article. But these two guys went on to, Tommy Rich won the NWA World title, Rick Martel the AWA World title. And so this is a really tremendous piece of wrestling history. And a lot of I just think a lot of fans are just unaware of it in its existence. I think they may have heard of it, but to know that you had belt versus belt, two world titles on the line, actually. This was not a non-title match. Both belts on the line in Japan, and so it doesn't get much better than that. So, and that was one of the things that I talked to Jim about was, you know, you had Harley Race defending against Baba, or Jack Briscoe and Baba. You had, you know, Saruda, you know, involved in beating Bockwinkel. And so you had all these things happening throughout history, but to have two American champions wrestling in Japan was really a foreign concept. So, Mike, anything else for the VIP members before we wrap up?
Definitely just check out this match. So many great, like you said, belt versus belt matches out there.
Right.
I mean, and you could go on and on, Flair and Backlund, and like you had mentioned, Race and Graham. I mean, just so many great rare matches. I mean, you even go back 1980, you got Dusty Rhodes, and Harley Race wrestling for the NWA title in Madison Square Garden.
Absolutely.
You know, so some hidden gems out there. Do yourself a favor this week, and catch some hidden gems.
No doubt about it. I'm always trying to catch those hidden gems myself, and I try to put them out on our Twitter just so people can also check those out. But again, thank you for being VIP members of Wrestler Weekly. Without you, we cannot do what we're doing. And thank you to Mike for joining me this week. And fans, like my good buddy Tommy Wildfire Rich says, and Freddie Miller Made Famous, next week it's 1986. Don't miss it. Be there.